Hey everyone, I'm excited as you all are. Now we are having our first talk on MiniDebConf in the room with Rex. And we have Ritesh Raj here. He's an avid Linux professional and a consultant. And he's been involved with the free software somewhere around since 1998. And he has a website of his own, Research Hut, and he's been a Debian developer since around 2010. Now we have him giving a talk on an introduction to APT Offline. With this, I hand over to Ritesh Raj.
Hello and welcome to MiniDebConf India 2021. This talk is about APT Offline and Offline Update Manager for APT. In this talk, I intend to give a brief background about APT Offline. I also intend to talk about the operating modes for APT Offline, what the different concepts are, and some of the additional features that are available in APT Offline. A brief introduction about me. My name is Ritesh. I have been involved in Linux in general somewhere around 98 or 99. I got introduced to Debian somewhere around 2002, which is when I started using it. And by around 2010, I became a Debian developer. I'm very proud to be part of the Debian project. The Debian project is something really amazes me for the structure it has, the policy it has, the QA process in place it has, and the meritocracy based system that it has. On the professional front, I am a consultant. I work as a consultant for Collabra. At Collabra, I work in the core technology group, where we focus on custom solutions based on Linux and Debian in particular for a wide range of clients we have. A brief history about APT Offline, what led to the creation of this software. Basically, somewhere around 2004, 2005, my then employer had a corporate IT policy which mandated only the use of Microsoft Windows machines. But at home I had a Debian box, and I wanted to keep it up to date without too much of hassle. Basically, I wanted to make use of the APT package management system. But APT was designed with an assumption that network would be available on all the systems, which is clearly not the case for me, where at home and at work I was by corporate IT policy I was required to use Windows. So I thought of finding a way to bridge the gap to update machines which are not connected to the network. So that was the primary intent. I also thought about a lot of countries where internet is not a commodity yet, and where it is difficult for people, and where people usually would only have limited time going to a cyber cafe or at a workplace with limited internet connectivity. Over the years, I realized that there were multiple additional use cases that developed. I got multiple reports from APT Offline users who use it for different cases like security and privacy, and isolated networks, wherein like military organizations or banking organizations or people who wanted to keep their networks completely isolated. In APT Offline, we have three modes of operation which are run on two different machines. There is the set mode, the get mode, and the install mode, of which set and install are run on the offline machine, whereas get can be run on any machine which has a network. Set has to be run on an offline machine running Debian or a Debian derivative, which is where when using the set operation, you generate a signature of the work that you intend to do. work would be something like you want to update the APT database, you want to do an upgrade of your Debian distribution, something equivalent to apt upgrade, or you want to install a package and like that. The get operation is what actually does the job of getting the actual payload that is required on the offline machine. So get can be run on any machine out there which has a network. It doesn't have to be running a Linux machine. APT Offline has been tested well on Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, and obviously Linux. The core requirement is that the Python interpreter needs to be available on the online machine. Same is for install. Once you get the data, you install it back on the offline machine with the install command. I'll talk more about each of these operations in detail in the next slides. So as I said, set is run on the offline machine. Its intent is to extract all the information that is requested by the user and generate it into a signature file. That is what the term we call it in APT Offline terminology. It supports multiple options. Like I said, you could use the update option if you want to update the APT database on the offline machine. You could use the upgrade option if you want to upgrade the list of installed packages on your offline machine, something like apt upgrade. You could also install new packages on the offline machine using the install packages option, which is something like apt install a package name. There's also some feature for developers who may want to play around with source packages. So in that case, you can also ask APT Offline to install a source package and it will generate the necessary information. It also has a build-up option, which basically is the equivalent of apt build-up package name, in which case the entire build dependency for the requested package is also made available. And lastly, there is a generate changelog option, which is used together with the upgrade option, wherein if you have a package like bash and it is going to be upgraded from version 5 to version 6, then if you give the generate changelog option, it will APT Offline will also extract and generate a changelog for you to assess before you act on it. The get operation is supposed to be run on the machine with network. Like I said earlier, get operation can be run on any machine. It doesn't have to be a Linux box. In fact, in my use cases, when I initially designed it, I used to run the get operation mostly on Windows because that is what I had access to with an internet connection. There are a couple of options in get, like you can define where you want to download the payload, whether it's to a directory, or you could also instead, for simplicity, use the bundle option, wherein you provide a file name instead, something like download.zip, and APT Offline would download all the data and create it into a zip archive file for simplicity reasons. There's also the cache dir option, which basically is about if you already have a machine which may have a large number of packages pre-downloaded, so then in that case you can pass the cache dir option with a directory, and APT Offline will look at the directory to see if the package that it intends to download is already available in the cache, and do some validation to see if the package is intact, and if it is, it would skip the download. There's also the bug reports option, which fills the gap for making the bug reports available for the requested package. This is good in cases where you request for a package and the package gets downloaded and you bring it to the offline machine, but before you go about installing it, you get a good list of all the packages sorry, all a good list of all the bug reports against the package that you are trying to install, and say if any of the bug reports is something which is serious to you. The other two options are very basic. One is for proxy support, and the other is for if you have a remote APT repository which has HTTP basic auth, so apt offline can even work for in such scenarios. The last operating mode for apt offline is the install operation mode, which basically is about installing the downloaded payload onto the offline machine. So once you have the get operation complete and a zip archive file or a directory where all your data is downloaded, then you can take it back onto your offline machine and then use the apt offline install command to install those downloaded data. It has a couple of interesting options. One is install source path in case you downloaded source packages and you would like to install it to a custom location. You could specify it using the install source path. Like I mentioned earlier about changelog and bug reports, these are options. The skip changelog and skip bug reports options are useful if you are using apt offline in scripted mode, wherein you don't want to look at the changelog or the bug reports, but rather just proceed. So you can skip them even though you may have downloaded it. Last is the allow unauthenticated option. This is something I wouldn't encourage to use, but if you have scenarios where you don't want apt offline to do the APT key rings, GPG signature validation, so in that case you can instruct apt offline to not validate it and just bypass the authentication. But this option is something I wouldn't recommend, so it is disabled by default. But if there is a use case you need it, you can use it. So at a higher level, these are the three modes of operation for apt offline: set, get, and install. Set and install are to be run on the offline machine, and the get operation is to be run on a machine with the network connection. Some of the additional features that were added to apt offline over time are a graphical user interface, which I'll talk about in the next slides. Offline bug reports, as I already mentioned in the options that I was explaining earlier, and the changelog feature. Both offline bug reports and changelog are useful to make an assessment on the package you are installing or upgrading, to have a view of what issues they may have or what changes they bring in. This is the primary user interface for apt offline. This is the main application window. As I was saying, the apt offline has three modes of operations: set, get, and install. The equivalent of it in the graphical interface is set equals to generate signature, get equals to downloading packages or updates, and install equals to installing packages or updates. I'll run through the individual application window for each of those operations. So in case of set or generate signature, you have the installation type, where you can say that you want to do an update, or you want to do upgrade of the packages, or you want to install binary packages or source packages, and depending on the options you choose, the other options would get enabled accordingly, like source build dependencies, changelog, and all that. And you can also specify the signature type on where you want to save it. For the get operation, it's a familiar window where you specify where your signature file is, and then you specify where you'd like to save your data. Like I said earlier, the get operation supports both a directory and a simple bundle zip archive. So in case you are specifying a directory, it's better to check the is directory box to instruct that the path is a directory. There are more sub windows in it, like the options window, which I'll not get into in this talk, but you are encouraged to try apt offline GUI and go through all the available features. In case of the install operation, which is about installing packages, you specify the path or a folder, as I said earlier, and then before you click on install, you can look at the bug reports and the change log, and as such. These are the main three major operations of apt offline. Now we'll move next to the bug reports and the change log window interface. This is what offline bug reports window looks like. This is a live example of bug reports that I extracted today for GNOME to-do package as an example, and it had 3 bug reports, and this is all made available on the offline machine with the entire bug report. Same goes for the changelog. In case of changelog, you get a window with the entire changelog that added to it, and you can have an assessment of what the package update brings in and act accordingly. That is pretty much about apt offline. I encourage you to have a look at it. The package is already packaged and available in Debian, which is where I take care of maintaining it. It should also be available in all the major derivatives of Debian. I believe Ubuntu has it, and a lot of other Debian derivatives also ship apt offline. There's also a how-to I prepared about apt offline, which talks mostly about what I have talked in this presentation. It gives a good how-to about how apt offline works and what all the features of it are. There's also the apt offline man page, which I keep up to date at all times. So you are encouraged to have a look at apt offline manual page also, and let me know in case you run into any problems. Apt offline is developed at GitHub. Please feel free to have a look, report issues or feature requests out there. That is pretty much about this talk. I will now quickly switch on to the demo section of this talk. For this demo, I have prepared 2 environments. This is a tab wherein I have named it as online machine, and the other one is offline machine. So we'll first get to the offline machine for the set operation. So on the offline machine, basically to showcase this demo, I have created an apt offline demo container, and let's boot into it. I'll just start the container and then log in into the container. And this is pretty much it. I am on a machine, and let's see what version of apt offline. We already have 1.8.2 here. This machine right now has access to the internet. We will just simply, for the sake of this demo, we will disable the name server, and we should not have access to the internet now. This machine, this container machine, also has access to the host file system, so that I can this signature file that I generate over here is accessible on the online machine. So that app is handled through the TMP and Debian build and containers folder, which the same folder would be accessible on the host machine. So for this example, we will try to install a package called fish. Fish is a shell similar to bash. So I'll first do is I'll make it clean so I don't have any package in my cache, and if I say apt install fish, this is going to ask and request 7,642 kilobytes of data to be downloaded. These are the packages that needs to be downloaded, but I do not have a network connection on this machine, so everything fails apart. So in this case, we will now use apt offline set as in fish.uris, and we'll give the install packages option and say that we would like to install package fish. The command succeeded proper, and now you have a file called fish.uris. This is basically the signature file. Now let's switch back to the online machine. This is an assumption. Now when you have generated the signature file on your offline machine, you carry it over a USB stick or something like some movable storage media. Now you take the storage media and attach it to the online machine, which could be running Windows, Linux, or Mac, or anything which has the Python interpreter. So in this case, I am running it on the same machine, but on the host side of it, not inside the container. So on the host machine, before I run the command, I would just validate that I have the same file over here, which is fish.uris, which we generated on the offline machine. And now we will simply try to run this command. I will just run you through what this command is supposed to do. Basically, apt offline, we are saying it the get operation to get data, which is from the signature file fish.uris. For simplicity, I have asked it to bundle it into a file which is called fish.zip. And in my case, since in my home network, for efficiency reasons, I have a proxy configured. I have asked apt offline to make use of the proxy hostname and the port, and to make the connections downloads faster, I have just instructed it to spawn 5 connections at this time. With that, let's run the command, the get operation, and it all got downloaded thanks to the proxy. Everything was in the proxy cache on a remote machine. Like if you can, I'll just briefly run you through. It fetches the APT data, it downloads all the packages with 5 connections, and downloads. Once it completes, it does some validation, and done. And at the end of the day operation, you get one single file, fish.zip, which has all the necessary information in this archive file to install on the offline machine. Let's now switch back to the offline machine again. To validate whether we have that file, we simply look here, and we do have the fish.zip file now over here. So now we are going to simply do is apt offline the install operation, and we are going to say that install this file fish.zip. That is pretty much it. You say this, and apt offline did all the necessary checks in the background, and it found everything intact and proceeded with the installation and install all those files into the APT cache. At this moment, the apt offline has done the job of bridging the gap in between the offline and online machine, that of the network. So on the offline machine without the network, you have all the data available. Now when you go back and say apt install fish, this is the actual command that we intended to run. When you do that, you'll see the same familiar prompt that APT provided. The only big difference is this: you have 0 bytes to download from the internet. So apt offline did the job in the background of letting APT have all the data in place. So if you proceed further now, your packages, APT will install your packages as if everything just magically came back and is available. The installation is complete. To validate, you can check the status of the fish package. It says that the package is installed. The candidate was 3.1.2, and the installed package is 3.1.2. You can also verify it with dpkg, giving it the package name, and it says that all the files are available. You can look at the binary file, and everything is intact. That is pretty much about apt offline. I hope you like this talk. If you like apt offline, please feel free to install it. It's pre-packaged in Debian, and as I mentioned, it is available in the project page that I mentioned earlier. Thank you.